right? I've been doing pain management for a long time, and I take an integrative view. It's a different view than most orthopedic surgeons are thinking about. Sorry for that noise, just adjusting the mic. So this guy comes to me, and he's in his early 30s, and he's a strong guy, and he's been working his whole life, manual labor, working in a warehouse, strains his low back. And, I wrote it in the notes there on the description, but basically 2 years of suffering and not being able to work and getting worse. And the pain spreading and going down his leg. The sprain is going over to the other side to his opposite shoulder. He's not sleeping at night. He's not working. He's starting to feel like a worthless person. Like, who am I in the world if I can't work, if I can't be the strong man that I was? And he'd gotten X-rays and CAT scans and, all the usual orthopedic interventions. Physical therapy, a bunch of different drugs, and nothing was helping him. This poor guy was just like swirling. And I see way too many people like that. And like I wrote, it wasn't so hard to help him. It was about identifying hands-on what was going on. On a hands-on exam, I could identify the muscle spasm. I could identify where the hip had been hiked up on the side that was in spasm, so his pelvis was out of whack, and that was resulting in pain going down in his leg, and his lower back was curved from that, and it was resulting on pain on the left side of his shoulder. And so it's really a simple hands-on look at the biomechanics, understand what's going on in the muscles, understand what's going on in the stress response and the pain processing system. So these are things that a lot of docs unfortunately seem to ignore or overlook. And frequently it's because, we get trained in this very high-tech model where, like, what's the X-ray show, what's the CAT scan show, do you have a herniated disc? It's like a herniated disc is just one of the things that can cause pain. And we see it on a scan, so we think, oh, well, that must be it. But we know that the scans are frequently misleading. They have to really be taken in context. The bottom line is this. In the course of over 20 years, tens of thousands of patients, what I see over and over again is that there are a number of physiologic changes that you can't measure with a scan, but you can see it in the person. You can see it hands-on. It has to do with the autonomic imbalance and overactive stress response. That's the first one. Second is some people just get depressed and anxious from persistent pain and lack of sleep, and that feeds into the whole cycle of tight muscles and anxiety and worsening pain processing. And if you don't diagnose those things, you don't treat them, and they don't get better. Third thing is some people have really disturbed metabolism and inflammation, toxicity, various kinds of metabolic things going on that can really create not just widespread pain, but an overall multiple symptom syndrome kind of thing. Loud airplane going overhead. Fourth thing is 4 and 5 are really soft tissue dysfunction. One of them is when the neuromuscular reflexes get all out of whack, and that's what was going on with this guy. Things were just like spasmed and imbalanced, and it was perpetuating spasm and imbalance. The other thing is the actual connective tissue, the fascia, the stringy stuff that holds you together, head to toe, bones to skin. It's a three-dimensional web that's part of your structure, and you can't measure it on a scan, but you can sense it when you train your hands to actually see what's going on in the person's body. Final thing is mindset. And, that was relevant for this guy too, because mostly what I talked about was addressing the soft tissue stuff and the neuromuscular stuff and the stress response stuff, right? Like the first time I met with him, I sat down and I really gave it to him around the likelihood we were going to be able to get him better. And he kind of like calmed down a little bit. And then the treatment itself, osteopathy, is very relaxing and calming, and it turns off the stress response and turns on that vagal tone relaxation response. And then the other thing is mindset. He was like a tough, strong guy, and he was doing all this like strong, tough, push, crank, pop. He was popping his back, and he was stretching really aggressively, and it's like, no, hang on. That's not the way to deal with this. What this is that your body's protective responses are perpetuating the pain problem. And the way you fix that is by creating a sense of calm and peace and turning off the protective responses, not just blasting through them with kind of adolescent, masculine, male, tough energy, So it's a different approach, and it works. And there's a lot of great manual practitioners. There's chiropractors, there's osteopaths, there's manually trained physical and occupational therapists. There are great massage therapists. There are ways at getting at the soft tissue, the neuromuscular, the stress response stuff. And I just want to encourage you, if you or somebody you know is dealing with persistent pain, to get a different perspective. Because my perspective now, here's what I learned at Harvard Medical School: orthopedic, neurologic, neurosurgical perspective. That only covers the issue in a small percentage of the time. And a lot of people come to me who've seen all the best doctors and gotten the best conventional care, but they're still suffering. So broader perspective looks at the mind-body variables, looks at the subtle neuromuscular and soft tissue control, as well as the underlying biochemistry of chronic pain and illness. And that's what frequently does it. If you want to learn more, I would encourage you, there's going to be a link in the comments. I wrote a little ebook that's called 3 Clues to the idea that your pain is not going to get better with conventional medicine. Get that ebook, check it out and read it. It'll sort of talk about some of these ideas in more depth. You can see whether or not you resonate with what it says. You might find it interesting. It might speak to you. So check that out, and wishing you well. I hope that you find a good solution to whatever your pain, chronic illness problem is, and see you soon. Take care.